Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan back for an Inside the Birds like we never left. Things have happened that we've already talked about. The Eagles finally have a replacement for Kellen Moore. Guess what? He's the guy we've been telling you it's going to be all along. We are obviously going to get into the coaching staff a little bit and then finish our series where we have gone inside Eagles contract situations at every single position. In this one, Adam will get through. We'll finish the team, finish the defense, cornerback, safety. And then after that, we can say we've done every single position. And then off you go to the combine next week. And it's right into free agency after that.
Gosh, this Eagles offseason is so short because they won the Super Bowl. They were in the Super Bowl and they won it. So, yeah. Wow, free agency starts in less than 3 weeks. Let me see. Yeah, it starts March the 10th. The way it works is since they put this about 10 years ago or so, they put in the open negotiating period, or they call the legal tampering period, but the open negotiating period is the correct term. So anyway, that's on Monday at 12 o'clock. All the big deals all go off the board. By the time you could sign contracts on Wednesday, every top player is off the board. So it's like kind of anticlimactic. So, it's kind of boring after that. It's a short free agency is not like the NBA. It's really short in the NFL. The top part is like over like in a snap.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll get intel like we always do at the combine. We'll do that, and we start getting some draft stuff. And oh yeah, by the way, first time we've done this, I did an audio video mock draft. First time we've done this, so I did it. First 11 picks are up there already. Friday today, you'll be able to get picks 12 through 21, and then we'll drop the rest of it next week. And I knew it. I know people are going to say I'm crazy about Shedeur Sanders, the Deion's son, the quarterback from Colorado. I get it. I don't do trades in this because I would rather trade down to get him. I think the value's better. But I understand why people would question that one. I got no problem with it.
Yep. Very excited about some of the things that we're doing. First of all, Inside the Birds every day this week, but then your mock draft that you're doing in a couple of different parts. First part out on all the platforms. And then Andrew DeCecco been doing his DeCecco dailies every single day. So I hope everybody's catching that. We're really storming into this offseason, trying not to leave any stone unturned. I really liked Andrew's insights lately on guys like Oren Burks and Nakobe Dean, Vic Fangio. He also discussed the coaching maneuvers and situations too. So Andrew's got everything covered from being inside the locker room all year. He gives you a really good perspective on guys like Andre Sam, guys who may have some opportunities to prove themselves next year because they were on the practice squad or they were a fringe player this year. And we know there's going to be opportunities as free agency and the draft will open and close some holes on the Eagles 53. So always worth checking out everybody's vantage point on it.
Yep.
Let's talk about the coaching moves, Adam, because even though we've talked about that it's going to be Kevin Patullo and we've gone into why, there are still some, I guess, reactions that are surprising to me. And I don't think everybody's working with all the right information when they're trying to analyze why it would be Kevin Patullo as the offensive coordinator. But as we've been saying for weeks, this is a guy who has been inside the house and he plans to keep elements in place from what Kellen Moore brought to the offense last year. He's obviously going to put his own fingerprint on it. Everybody has their own, but that's a good scenario that you have somebody who comes from both the Nick Sirianni tree, but also worked in concert with Kellen Moore to be able to keep those concepts in place.
Yeah, so let's talk about the positives then the concerns, because I know in talk radio I heard this week. I mean, I know there's some people who have concerns. Some of it's very valid, and we'll explain the validity of it. But let's the positives are the ones we talked about 3 or 4 weeks ago. If it happened like we thought it would happen, which has happened, is that Kevin Patullo and JalenHurts have now worked together. This will be their 5th year working together, as we're told that they've worked closely together. Kevin was part of the big breakout season for JalenHurts in 22. So he's been there. He's seen Jalen when he was his first year as a starter. He was there in 21. So he knows. I mean, they know each other very well. You now have continuity. That's important because Jalen talked about it this spring. He knew if Kellen Moore became a head coach, which just happened, he's going to have, I think it's been at least 10 play callers going back to high school. So it's tough. It's not anyone's fault. It's just the way it is in the National Football League. You can't block anyone for being a head coach. It's just the way it is.
Right.
So look, they could have looked outside, bring a different voice who Jalen doesn't know to be the play caller, and bring in a new scheme. By the way, if you were going to do that, it would have to be a new scheme. So this way, Kevin Patullo, who was the passing game coordinator, was involved in game planning every week. So you get to keep it relatively the same. It's a voice that Jalen knows. I know the game day play call on his headset's going to be different, yes, but familiarity here is good. I mean, it's a good thing. Yes. When we first heard about this 6 weeks ago, that there was the odds-on favorite, I'm like, okay, looking into the reasons, I get it, but and Kellen and Kevin only worked together one season. So, and you're right, they always put their own stamp on it. We'll have to see. And obviously, he's got to get together with Jalen. I know they know each other. This is their 5th year working together, but he's got to find out what Jalen did or didn't like from Kellen's scheme. Although, as I was saying on the last show, that it's a shame that Kellen and Jalen can't work together any longer because, man, they started creating that beautiful music together in week 15. They had sporadic success, but the success in the final quarter was real, man. They really started getting together, and it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame they don't get to work together anymore. But onward and upward.
Onward and upward. So what would you say? I mean, I guess the obvious downside to the move is that Kevin Patullo has never called plays in the NFL before. He is a first-time play caller, and that scares people because it makes them think that there's a potential of this being sort of a Brian Johnson deal all over again, where you promote from within, you make a guy who's never called plays before call plays, and then you're not exactly thrilled with the result.
Yeah, I would say, and I understand the consternation about, well, it's Sirianni's guy. Yes, him and Patullo are very close. We talked about this when Patullo came in. It was one of the first coaching scoops of that staff is that this is going to be his right-hand man, who's sort of like his chief of staff kind of, and he more or less it has been. But, you worry about a couple things here. Like, this is Nick's guy, so Nick cannot commandeer. Like, if patience has got to be shown. You mentioned Brian Johnson. There was no patience with him. Like, this is when Brian Johnson got caught between the issues between Hurts and Sirianni 2 years ago. That's not Brian Johnson's fault. That's Nick not being a good communicator. It's been well chronicled, but through other outlets who wrote about it. You and I spoke about it. Mm-hmm. Everybody had their information. It can't happen again. I know Nick's going to get a new contract. He would have got a new contract regardless if they won the Super Bowl or not, to be honest with you.
Right.
Nick's done a really good job. He's an excellent head coach, but he struggled a little bit in 2023. We outlined this at the time. Mm-hmm. So he's got to be careful here. Just because this guy's going to be the play caller doesn't mean you could start taking – you got to be careful because, remember, people were concerned about who's calling the plays. When Kellen started dialing stuff back, you saw it out in social media. People are like, is Sirianni doing it now? Is he taking over? No, he didn't take over. It just Kellen dialed it back a little bit because Jalen strung a little bit. But Nick cannot get overly involved. That I think that's valid. I think that's valid. He cannot do this.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He can't jump the gun. He can't panic.
Yes.
This to me will be a test of the Eagles if they've sort of learned their lesson. If they can be, they are a very good. You can call them an elite franchise and organization.
Yep.
Especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years. But there are some valleys sometimes with them where they fall down, like their 1-6 finish at the end of 2023, because they just make a series of bad decisions, and then to try to fix those bad decisions, they make worse decisions. Right? Matt Patricia over Sean Desai, perfect example. But there have also been some drafts way back and just overall decisions. So this will be a test of, can they trust their process, even if the process isn't beautiful from the beginning, because it might not be. They're going to play a tough schedule next year. They're going to have losses. Just stay the course. Don't listen if the fans and the media get all crazy about it. But I want to address what you were talking about with the reaction, because I think people forget about the Eagles were in a somewhat of a situation of good fortune last year, that a guy, when they wanted a new offensive coordinator, a guy like Kellen Moore was available a young guy, a guy who had produced a #1 offense as a coordinator in I think 2 for the Cowboys, and who was known as being a bright young mind. He wasn't going back to the Chargers because they were starting anew. So there was an opportunity to bring him in. This is why I say when people want the Eagles to not promote from within and go get someone from the outside, who is that someone that has Kellen Moore's reputation that is available right now? We already know Frank Reich is not that guy. He's not known as this great play caller, and we don't even know if he wants to coach at this point. He hasn't come out and said, I definitely want to coach, and he's making a lot of money. And they're just, to me, if you're looking for that guy, you're then trying to poach somebody else's quarterbacks coach or pass game coordinator. And those guys also aren't guys who usually have play calling experience. If you're trying to poach an offensive coordinator, it's a lateral move. So they were very lucky to have someone as experienced and as proven as Kellen Moore sort of out there. And I don't think that situation was presented to them this year where they could be like, bam, let's go get this guy. He's great.
It's so late.
Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if you remember back in 2018, was it Gunter Brewer, the receivers coach, was added at the combine or after that?
Yes. It's hard.
It's hard, man, because you can block. If it's not a clear promotion, it's got to be in the language that's submitted from the club who wants to interview the coach. It's got to say exactly what his duties are. And if it's not a clear promotion, the club could block it. The originating club could block it. So the league's got onto this because we mentioned this weeks ago when Frank Reich had it in his idea when he was becoming the Panthers head coach. He wanted to somehow bring Stoutland in, but the Eagles would have blocked it because he would not been the play caller. Like it wasn't happening. So never happened. Never submitted it, and I think word got back to Frank that the Eagles would never let that happen.
Right.
But bottom line is, I think this is a good decision. How good it's going to be, we're not going to know until they get there. You don't know about a play caller until they actually have to do it. But it's not. Remember, the game plan's in during the week. It's game day situationally. Okay, they're doing this to us. What do you have to counter that? That's called coaching. Like you and Nick's got to help Kevin out and the other staff, rest of the staff. Okay, communication's got to be great. Jalen's got to have great feedback to Kevin. I know they know each other because this is their 5th year working together, but they've never had this relationship where the guy's actually the play caller. He's going to be the one guy who's going to be in his ear on game day. So it's not easy. So patience, as you said, and I agree, it's got to be a virtue here. You got to let this thing play out.
And last point that I think is better in this situation than in 2023 is that Kevin Patullo will have Saquon Barkley, as long as he's healthy, in this offense. That's something that Brian Johnson did not have. He had DeAndre Swift. Swift was good. But Kellen Moore came here, by the way, with this reputation of running a certain style of offense. And by week 7 or week 8, Kellen Moore was running some of what he – like bringing some of his motion and misdirection elements of it. But it became an offense about giving the ball to Saquon Barkley. So I think Kevin Patullo – he will try to put his DNA and his fingerprints on this offense. He'll try to keep a lot of the things the same, but that means also giving the ball to your best offensive player, which is Saquon Barkley. Remember, the Eagles' offense this year was not like a great offense. I think it was 8th overall. It was 2 in the run game. I think it was, I can go get the pass game. It was pretty low. So it's not like Kellen Moore came here and just reinvented the passing game. It was an inconsistent offense. Passing offense for most of the year, but it was always a rock solid rushing offense with Saquon, and Kevin Patullo will have that. If things aren't working, if it's a rough day, he can just dial up 26, and that's something that his predecessor in 2023 did not have the ability or the luxury of doing.
And on that, he's got Stout as a run game coordinator. That's like
Brian Johnson had that too, but yeah,
right. But this guy, Patullo's been here, and Patullo's still here. And he just saw what Kellen Moore did. He relied a lot, as we understand, on Stout. And I'm sure Kevin will do that. So good luck to him. And by the way, before we move on here, they still have the quarterback's job. The quarterback's job is still open. And if they want to have one, because TJ Paganetti was assistant O-line coach, from what we understand, he did a great job. And that's probably part of why Kellen Moore wanted to bring him with him to New Orleans. But the big one is quarterback's coach. So we will see what happens there. We don't have any, we only put stuff out there when we know hard names and we know, okay, this is going on. We haven't got great confirmation on the quarterback coaches who could be. So we've heard rumors, but we're not feeling good about that stuff. So we don't when we feel good about something, you're going to know about it. So that's the way it is.
All right. Anybody else we wanted to get to before we go on to the second?
Well, the other hire is first reported by NFL Network, and we've heard the same. So unless something happens that we're not aware of, so Parks Frazier, who is a protege of Frank Reich, he's going to come in as the new pass game coordinator to take the Patullo position because Kevin's now the OC. So Parks Frazier is I talked to someone who coached with him before, very smart, very talented young coach. The thing was, after Reich was fired and Jeff Saturday took over as the interim head coach for the Colts, Geoff gave Parks Frazier a chance to be the interim OC. It was, there were some struggles. He wasn't ready for it. He was 31 then.
Yeah, it was the worst situation in football.
Yeah, it's a tough deal, man. Let's be honest. I don't know this guy, but I talked to someone who knows him because he coached with him. So he's a really sharp guy, but just given too much responsibility too soon. And then Frank brought him in when he became the Panthers head coach as the pass game coordinator. Thomas Brown was the OC under Frank. Thomas Brown is no longer with the Bears, but he's a Reich protege. Frank, as this coach told me, thought a lot of him. Sirianni and Patullo worked with him with the Colts years ago. So he's an up-and-coming coach who they know. Now he's got to learn this, whatever Patullo's version of Kellen Moore's scheme, as we understand, he's going to run. Parks has got to learn that because when you're a pass game coordinator, you're involved. So he's got to get to know the Jalen, and he's got to know the particular scheme. He's got to learn it. So that's part of this, man. It's not easy. So we'll see what happens.
I had a coach tell me that Parks Frazier and Frank Reich are so close that Frank basically considers Parks like a son, and that he officiated his wedding. Yeah. So
really, wait, Parks' wedding?
Yeah,
Parks Frazier. Wow, gosh,
I believe Frank was the officiant at Parks Frazier's wedding. Yeah.
Okay, I know
that's going to scare people. That sort of sounds like the whole Press Taylor and how close he was to Doug and Carson and everything. But Frank's not here. This is different. He's not here at the moment, and this is different.
Yeah, and Frank, just I know people have asked us, what he is not officially retired, just the shares, but you mentioned it. He's still getting paid a lot of money by David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, and a couple coaches I know who know him. They'd be surprised if he coached again. You never say never. He's in his 60s now, but he's made a lot of money. He obviously knows the Eagles building. Won a Super Bowl with him, but there's been no movement as of now for him to be their quarterback's coach. We never say never. I don't know why Frank would want to, with all that money coming, why would he want to come back and coach right now? But the big thing is, though, is that the big one to watch is Patullo, and by the way, when we go to OTAs, they have to open it up. So, and then training camp's completely open, so we'll know then how it's looking. You can be fooled sometimes, we know, but I'm just curious how it's going to change because Patullo, as you said, you're right. Every play caller has his own stamp on an offense, no matter what scheme you're watching. That's just the way it is.
100%. All right, you ready to get to this contract? We'll finish it off on quarterbacks and safety. Let's do it. First, you got to hear a great word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, you either got to get yourself out there to Sky Motor Cars and experience the greatness yourself by talking to Brett Schulter and his staff, seeing their fantastic inventory of cars, whether you're buying, whether you're trading. They're truly a wonderful place for a car shopping experience, or you got to get online and go to SkyMotorCars.com. If you go in, tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You're going to get a great deal. You're going to get treated like royalty. So please make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you at Sky Motor Cars. All right, we will finish up our contract discussion. We'll start at corner. The big name and sort of the curiosity, Adam, is with Darius Slay and what's going to happen because of his contract situation.
Yeah, just to go over. So let's not forget how he became an Eagle once again. I just want people to understand that no matter what's reported, doesn't mean that whoever put out was wrong, that they were wrong. It's just things change sometimes, that it all resolved around the Gardner Johnson situation. The Eagles were convinced they were going to get him back, and CJ was not willing to be reasonable. They were right that his market wasn't what he thought it would be. I give Howie Roseman credit. He brought him back 2 years later, and I'm sure they're glad they did. He helped them win a Super Bowl. He had a really good year after a slow start. But Slay was flat out told he was being cut. And then 5 hours later, they called Rosen out and said, hang on. Don't sign with Baltimore, because Slay put it on his podcast. So that was where he was going to go. And he goes, we want him back. And Darius wanted to be back. And he's now 34, the oldest starting cornerback in the National Football League. By the way, a New Year's baby, New Year's Eve. New Year's Day. How about that? 1991.
Didn't he say? I think Dom was the one, by the way, that called him on the phone.
Okay.
How he's like, all right, we really need to make sure that he doesn't. Let's get Dom to call him. So you're Slay. You're talking to Dom.
Is that right? I didn't even know that. Really?
That's what he said. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So. Not too many people like to say no to Dom.
I know. I wonder if he was wearing sweatpants when he called. No, I'm just kidding. Has he ever not been seen with sweatpants on? What's that?
Definitely Adidas style or feel.
Yeah, I've never not. I mean, if he owns a suit, I don't think I've ever seen him wearing one. But anyway, so yeah, Slay's owed total $16 million. He's got the option bonus, which is not guaranteed. They got to make that decision shortly. I'll be honest with you. I asked Cosell this. Greg said he's still we all know he's not the same player, but he said Slay could still play. We asked him that weeks ago. He didn't do a bad job. Ideally, you want someone younger, but there's really no answer. But the question is, where are they going to line up DeJean?
Yeah, that's a great
so
point. Good. It's hard to say right now, but I think it's when you have a player like DeJean, who is a very good athlete. I think it's easier to envision yourself moving him outside. He doesn't have to be a 3-time All-Pro. I mean, he just has to play really well or at a good enough level opposite Quinyon Mitchell, who's also very good, because it's a little bit easier to find yourself a high-end nickel than it is to find yourself a high-end outside corner. All right,
sure.
Vic said nickel and outside.
So I know it's coming. Yeah.
So listen, you're right. You can't predict the future. You never know who's going to be available, like a veteran free agent that could be still pretty good and cost a lot less money. And maybe they bring him in and they like that guy outside and they keep DeJean at nickel. But, that's the sort of luxury of having your first and second round pick last year be as good and athletic as they are and were, and under a rookie deal and kind of ready for that assignment.
Yep. Again, the total cash is $16 million, not guaranteed. So, yeah. I this is an interesting decision because you want the position that DeJean played was more of what's called a dynamic nickel. It wasn't traditional, just playing the slot. He did so many things. You would have to go through every snap to see what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Slot corner, outside corner, linebacker, safety. Not a traditional safety, but by alignment, you could have called him a safety at some point.
Yeah, edge rusher, by the way.
Right, Ed. Yes. Oh God, I mean, he is a stud. How that trade up? How I give Howie. Obviously, we're all giving Howie credit. He's phenomenal. Yeah. How he's become this great drafter. But I don't even know if they. No matter what they'll tell you, I don't think they knew he was this good. I mean, holy bleep.
Yeah, he played well. I mean, I think he was as vital to how the Eagles functioned this year as the way Trent McDuffie has been for the Chiefs, where usually as a nickel, but a blitzer and a tackler and a coverage guy and a hybrid safety. So, and by the way, McDuffie was a guy the Eagles would have taken if they didn't trade up for Jordan Davis, I believe, in that draft. I
think you had that steam back then. And by the way, McDuffie was great. McDuffie was great day one. He was phenomenal day one. He didn't have a great Super Bowl. But bottom line is the Eagles have a decision to make on Slay, and it'll be done relatively shortly. Mm-hmm. After that, here the guys are under contract. Mitchell, Quinyon, second year of his deal, owed $1.47 million, fully guaranteed the season. Second year of the first-round rookie deals like that. DeJean, he's also in his second year, $1.26 million, fully guaranteed. Keely Ringo, third year, his 4-year rookie deal. Really had a Really good OTAs, dropped off in training camp. Isaiah Rodgers clearly beat him out. It wasn't really a competition. If you were paying attention, if you were at training camp, you would know this. It wasn't close. Right. Isaiah Rodgers was really good. Like that. Yet another. Howie takes the right risks, and Isaiah Rodgers. I've said this before. I love hearing him talk. If you go to hearing him speak in the locker room, because the Eagles put up a lot of their sound. He's one of the best speakers. Very philosophical. Just love hearing him speak. I mean, and it was a good story. He did a great job as a third corner. We just mentioned Ringo. Ringo and Ricks have the same salary at $1.03 million, not guaranteed. Eli Ricks, they kept him on the roster. What I find interesting with the Ricks situation is like the previous staff, the previous coaching staff on defense, they like Ricks. This staff, very quickly, he was their fifth corner. Like it didn't take long. But Howie kept him on the roster.
Yeah, they also had a lot more injuries the year before, and they kind of forced to shoehorn Ricks in there.
Sure, but he did a good job, you know?
Yeah.
Did a good job.
So Rodgers is interesting because if the Eagles can figure out a way, if the market, for whatever reason, isn't there because he just didn't play a whole lot, and the Eagles can figure out a way to bring him back. I mean, when's the last time you felt this good in the offseason about the Eagles D-backs? Because 1 through 5, let's say if Slay doesn't come back, you got Mitchell, Gene, Rodgers, Ringo are two good backups to have, and Ricks is still developing. I mean, that's like miles above where the Eagles have ever been at this point in the offseason at cornerback.
I've not felt this good, certainly in the history of our show. And this is year 8 now. I don't remember feeling so good about a young group of corners. Or I'm sorry, Vic. DeJean is a nickel, okay? But he's going to be a corner at some point because Eagles drafted him to play outside corner. I do wonder, by the way, had he not been coming off the injury that he suffered in his last year at Iowa and had the hamstring, they would have played him full-time at corner. But the teams we spoke with said because of the injuries that, in fact, by the way, I don't know if we've talked about this before. A couple teams told me if they would have drafted him, they would have played him a nickel year 1 anyway because he wouldn't be ready in the offseason.
Right. So
they felt like start him off at nickel, let him get that down, and then eventually move him outside corner if you thought he could play it. But we'll see what happens there. So, yeah. So Rodgers is a free agent. He did a great job in his role. Really was a good third corner. Technically, we're calling him Vic a corner. Vontae Maddox, I know he's nickel. Hey, he had to play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He did.
By the way, you could also kind of Sheldon Brown him, meaning back in the day, like you could start Cooper on the outside whenever you're in base. And if you're comfortable with your number 3, let's say it's Rodgers, and you're really happy with his development, you bring him back and you think he can play it's a little bit of a dice roll because he's short, Rodgers, but
he could run.
If you want to play him on the outside and slide DeJean back to nickel in those situations, nickel and dime, then great. You have that opportunity and flexibility. He's already proven he can do it.
By the way, McDuffie's under 5'11".
Right.
So I know Rodgers is 5'10", and he's got a small frame, but he's aggressive. He's physical. He can run.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll tell you what, I'd be very surprised if they don't try to bring him back. But like you're saying, if he wants to start, then it becomes an issue. Okay, they can get Slay's money back. By the way, the people asking about the cap, it's not final yet. It's just a projection of. I think my friend Dan Graziano had the report about, what the NFLPA is saying. But once it's official, we'll delve into it. We'll explain it. But that's another time. But the bottom line is Isaiah Rodgers earned a chance to come back here and be potentially starting outside corner. And look, I know other teams told us they saw him as a nickel, as playing slot. He showed it. You know what? Maybe he will do that, but he showed he could play on the outside. He was pretty good when he got a chance.
All right, there you go. And we know, of course, you mentioned Avonte Maddox, free agency. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Let's move over to safety. Some really interesting decisions that await the Eagles. Let's start with CJ before we get into the others, because he's a guy that going into last year, bringing him back it was a weirdly structured deal, if I'm not mistaken. People thought it was like this big blowout deal because of how the original numbers were reported, but I don't know if you would call it that.
No, what it is he's got your typical Eagles option bonuses inside the contract. It's basically $9 million a year, but the full guaranteed signing was only $10 million.
Right.
It basically had what we called a 1-year structure. The guarantee in year 2 is only $2 million. And as we said at the time, people didn't understand it who don't understand the contracts. What we said was if the Eagles wanted to get out of the contract after 1 year, they would just owe him $2 million.
Right.
The $2 million being owed is not going to keep him on the roster unless he's playing well. He played well, so he'll be back. That's not in question.
Well, is this the best bargain in football now to have CJ on the books with only $2 million guaranteed?
Well, you know what? The guarantee is $2 million. The cash is $8.5 million, but the guarantee is only $2 million. Hey, he negotiated. Him and his agent did.
True.
He didn't have the market. Remember, you have to understand it's not his fault. He kept getting hurt. He had a serious injury in 22. He barely played in 23 with the Lions. He came back late. Give him credit for doing that, but he had no leverage. He's lucky he got this contract, to be honest with you. And we're all big CJ fans. I love hearing him talk, and he's a fun guy. But you know what? That doesn't matter. It's performance, and you got to be available. He had a good year. In fact, did he miss any time? I don't think so. Did he?
I thought there was one game concussion, maybe, but I don't even remember.
Probably get thrown out. That's on him. That's he owned it against Washington. He can't do that.
He did,
but that hurt him. That hurt them winning that game. Let's call it like it is. But I'll look it up real quick here. Go ahead. So Gardner Johnson.
So Gardner Johnson played. I got it right here. 16 games.
Nope.
Well, he just missed what?
No, he did not. No, you were going to say what he was rested week 17 or week 18.
Right. That was the only thing he missed was for rest.
2 injuries he had: foot and abdominal. Didn't miss any. Wow, isn't it funny? Because you and I were wearing the same hat with Saquon. We didn't say they shouldn't sign him, but the question was, and this is what Joe Banner said. He said we were right with our concern, but what Joe said with Barkley is it's going to be a bargain if he stays healthy. And guess what? CJ's contract became a bargain because he stayed healthy. You don't know that going in, though.
Right. Go figure.
Yeah, but hey, great job by the performance staff and great job by the players staying healthy. What can I tell you?
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about Reed Blankenship now.
Oh, boy. I forgot about this one. Yeah.
This is a guy who I think is primed for a contract extension.
Yeah. You know what? The only reason you're absolutely right. The only reason I put him on here, well, he should be on this as a contract show, because Greg kept saying, everybody knows who's listening to our show. Greg, just by tape, says he's loved Milton Williams for 4 years because of the tape study. Milton Williams has been great, but Greg's been on Reed Blankenship particularly because he talks to certain people with the Eagles and they've raved about him. Well, on your point about his contract, I mean they got to do something with his contract. He took, and I get it, because they kind of bought out his restricted free agent deal, restricted free agent year. Gave him a little bit of money by giving him over the tender for being a restricted free agent. But now the contract's outdated. He needs to get a new deal. They got to take care of him. He's on the final year of his extension. Just over 1 million fully guaranteed. He's going to make just under 1.8 million. You got to take care of him. I'm stunned like everyone else. I don't think anyone saw him being this good of a football player. In fact, that's why he wasn't drafted. People thought he didn't run well enough, didn't time well enough, despite him being a starter for a lot of years at Middle Tennessee State. But bottom line is they need to take care of this guy. He deserves an extension. And he's another guy where you couldn't make this up because nobody wanted this guy. I talked to a bunch of college scouts who didn't. I had one guy who had his area who said he gave him a non-signee. Which means even didn't even give him priority free agent grade. That tells you that didn't like him. But you know what? Eagles got it right. Yet another one.
Absolutely. I guess we're calling James Bradbury a safety, right? So we're going to go through his contract as a
safety. I did. Yeah. he's got an option bonus, which are obviously going to decline. They're not going to have him on the roster when it's due. Of $16.6 million. The total cash is $18 million. He's not coming back on that. Now listen. James is a great dude, high character guy, good at mentoring younger players. I mean, would the Eagles not bring him back at a very low end deal just to be a backup safety? I mean, I don't know if we'll look into that, but they'll save him more cash and more cap. The cap is big and the cash is really big. He's not coming back at $18 million in total cash. So
no, definitely not.
But anyway, so that's where that's at. We talked about GJ, Sidney Brown. What are your thoughts on him? I might as well ask you.
My thoughts are it's a big year for him because I'm not sure, beyond 2025, is CJ going to be able to see the third year of his 3-year deal? We didn't really go into what year 3 looks like for him, whether it's guaranteed or not. But
it's not. No, it's not. 1.3 is not guaranteed.
So they're going to have a decision to make. I think they got to get him on the field and see him outside of just being a special teams guy. But if I'm starting the year off, I'm starting obviously with CJ, GJ, and Reed Blankenship. So maybe there's some opportunity to get Sidney in if you're playing big nickel.
Yep.
But he's not exactly a slot guy. So,
nope.
I remember when they drafted him, we liked what we heard about his athletic ability, about how he plays, which he does play with his hair on fire. He does play relentlessly, but we did wonder about the fit in kind of a Fangio scheme where your safeties have to cover and his lack of experience in coverage. He can hit somebody in a straight line. He didn't cover a whole lot of receivers in college. He played mostly in, I think, 2 high shell. So I still kind of have the same questions about his fit. But first thing first,
he's a box safety. Actually, he's a box safety. He's just not a coverage.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
That's the problem. No, that's what you're saying. So I don't. On your point about the fit, I don't know, other than big nickel, which, by the way, Vic had some in Denver. He hasn't really done much of it here. I don't know how he fits. I'm with you. I don't see it any differently than you do. I don't know how he fits, other than a tone setter. But how are you setting the tone when Reed Blankenship already does that?
Yeah.
And Reed makes plays on the ball. Reed's moving better than we thought. I don't know. I get why they wanted him, because Sidney Brown could hit. High character like his brother Chase is with the Browns. But you got to produce.
So that's another thing I want to really attack over the next week or two while you're at the combine. Owners meeting. Just high character as a person, yes. High character as a football player, as far as keeping your emotions in check, not trying to take dirty shots. Where I just felt like
overly aggressive.
Every time I saw him get an opportunity, and listen, I know a lot of players do that, so I'm not going to come down on him. But usually, you've established yourself in the league as somebody before you start cheap shotting people, and he has not established himself as anything. So I do
overly aggressive. I hate to call him a cheap shot. Overly aggressive.
There were some cheap shots in there. I'll tell you that. When I say cheap shot, I mean you hit somebody after the whistle, or you took someone's leg and like shoved it away for no reason. Like I saw
Steelers game. Remember?
There was even one after. There were a couple of times. So I would like to kind of you wonder how Vic feels about that. Being an old school guy. I'm sure Vic likes players with an edge, but I think he also likes players who play responsibly and can be accountable. So that's just what I want to find out about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Then, so the final 2 guys are Lewisine, who we've told you about. The Eagles specifically brought him in to get a look at him. They had to give him a 2-year deal to get him into the offseason because they signed him off of the Bills practice squad. So he's making $1.03 million non-guaranteed. What I was told was with Flores did not see him as a fit he was totally healthy. That was not the issue. Flores did not think he fit at all in their defense. He didn't want him. You can't force a coach. Who is it? Oh, okay. I'm going here with Schwartz. He didn't win. Howie had that funny line. Who was the
Eric Rowe.
Thank you. You know where I was going.
In fact, I almost interrupted you when you were talking about how good of a speaker Howie is. I was going to say yes, unless he's shoveling the BS on a player.
I wasn't saying Howie was a good speaker. I was talking about Isaiah Rodgers.
I think he also said Howie has been really good at presenting.
No, he's just been great at the draft, and finally at the draft. It took him a while, but obviously he's been phenomenal at the draft. But no, so Scene has got great size. He's talented. I'm told he's great, feels great, all that. But you know what? It's going to be crowded with Blankenship, not Bradbury, Blankenship, CJ, GJ, Brown, McCollum. I know McCollum's a special teams player, but maybe there's an opportunity here because he's unique. He was a first-round pick. Whether he should have been or not is not the point. Guy was a first-round pick. There's talent here. Just because one coordinator didn't want him, let's see what the other one wanted. I can't, Howie does like to get with Vic and consult with him and with a bunch of stuff. So hopefully Vic will have an opportunity to give an opportunity in OTAs to see what he can do. But I'm interested to see what Scene could do because he's now we're also told the Bills were looking at him as a linebacker because of his size. We haven't heard that here with the Eagles, but we'll see what happens in OTAs in May and June.
Yeah, I mean he's a guy they clearly want to kick the tires on and see what they can do with him. So that's good to have. Excellent to have. And then we'll see what they do as far as free agency and the draft. Because
corner, it's a big one.
It's a position that could probably use a little depth if they're not
safety. Or you mean safety?
Probably a little bit. Well, in the corner, I like how they're not that they can't add, but I like their depth at corner. Safety beyond CJ, GJ, and Blankenship, you just don't know enough about Sidney Brown.
Sure.
Houston's always going to be sort of a fringe guy fighting to make the 53. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is if Reed or CJ, GJ were to get hurt, who's playing in that spot now because it had been Tristan because they trusted Tristan more. But can he hold the fort down for 3 or 4 games when you're not the same defense you were last year? We'll have to see.
And at corner, the big decision is where's DeJean going to be lining up? Is he going to be nickel?
Right.
Or is he going to play outside of corner? Because if it's outside of corner, they don't need, it's real simple. It's DeJean, it's Mitchell. Ringo's still under contract. They'll still need to add one more guy for depth. And then obviously that him playing on the outside would mean Slay's not coming back.
Right.
So it is interesting. It's interesting because Slay's been a really good Eagle. That was a great trade they made with the Lions. He's 34, the oldest outside corner, but he still could play at a high enough level. You never know it though when guys lose their legs, man, in terms of explosiveness. You never know. You don't want to wait. You never want to wait till it's too late. So you got to be careful. So, but he could still play. Well, I'll be interested to see what Howie does here.
Yeah. You know what? The more to end it on this, the more I think about how valuable DeJean was as a blitzer in their sim packages, their sim blitzes. That's hard to do when you're outside. You really got to. You're coming from much further away. It wouldn't surprise me if they just feel comfortable with somebody to play the outside opposite Quignon that they would keep DeJean at nickel just because of his versatility and his value there. I can see that. But again, to your point, they'd have to find someone they're very comfortable with.
That's it.
Playing outside. And again, I don't think that guy's got to be an all-pro. I just think they need to be comfortable.
Rodgers. I mean, I honestly, he knows the system. He did a good job in his role. We'll see, because look, his agent, I'm sure, is going to want him to get paid. And if you're bringing him back, to me, he's got to be starting. He's could run. The tape's good enough. We asked Greg a number of times what he thought. He said Rodgers looked good. He's all the way back because the Eagles didn't know this when they signed him. You can only talk to the agent. You can't talk to the player. They know they found out what he was doing when he was away from the club when he was suspended.
Right.
But you don't know until you get there, and they found out he could still play. He's still really young, and to finish this off, this was an amazing year for Howie. I mean, honestly, the Bryce Huff one, it is what it is. I know someone asked us on the YouTube comments about because the guy said he's new to our show. Real quick, they thought he'd be able to handle playing as a stand-up pass rusher. It didn't work. He played in a wide 9 where the edge rushers are playing they're outside the tackles. Because that's what he did with the Jets for Robert Saleh. Brought that over from the Niners. It just didn't work, and it's a lot of money. They owe him around $17 million, fully guaranteed. It's hard. It's a lot to walk away from, but they'll deal with that when the time comes about how they're going to handle his contract.
All right, great stuff, Adam. It's been fun. I mean, ITB every day this week on top of your mock draft podcast and Daily DeCecco and all the other stuff that we've been doing. Extra this offseason. Really good stuff. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And we'll be back. We'll be back sooner than you know it. So that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.